Christina,
Yes.
is it possible that we record this session? Would you be okay with that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
At the moment, we have 50 people in the group.
So I would say 2 more minutes only.
Okay. Some of them are waiting in the lobby, so we might pick them up. For everyone, Christina, we have a talk for like maybe 40 to 45 minutes, I believe, and then followed by 15 to 20 minutes of questions or discussion. If you have questions or comments or things, just prepare yourself. There will be a session that you can ask her in case you want to market your product in Europe or you want to work with food and nutrition wallet. So I think she'll be open to answer all the questions. Okay.
So I think it's about time to start. Shall we?
Right. Okay, sure. I think okay. Before we begin, I would like to introduce Dr. Ek Anong Changbua as the Director of Thailand Food Innopolis to give a warm welcome for Christina and give a little bit of introduction that why we are doing this and to say something about the program. Please, Dr. Anong,
Okay. ก็สวัสดีทุกคนนะคะ and also good afternoon again, Christina. So welcome everybody to the today's session of NSTDA ACCEL special talk. So this is the first special talk for our accelerator. So actually today we are supposed to have our second boot camp, as everyone know that, but due to the new wave of the COVID outbreak, so we cannot organize the boot camp as planned. But those who already been to our first boot camp will know that normally at the end of the day after the dinner, we would have the evening session, and we invite people to share their thoughts and valuable experience and knowledge to the participant in the accelerator. So today, even though we cannot have the boot camp on ground as planned, but we still going to have the evening session, which today we are very happy to have Christina, who is the managing director of Sweet Food and Nutrition Ballet, to share with us in this topic, Sweet Food Tech Startup Ecosystem, the gateway to European food market. Christina joined this organization early this year, and this is the newly program in Switzerland, which we will learn more from her talk today. So a little bit about Christina. She has been working with startup in the past, I think 7-8 years, and then she helped them with their strategies, marketing, and also in recent 3 years, She also established a successful collaboration between global startup and Swiss-based food and retail company. Um, Christina has strong research and development background in food technologies from well-known university, Wageningen University in Netherlands. And she also worked in brands consumer goods industry for more than 12 years with R&D, innovation management, brand management, new product development, consumer insights, and also business strategy. So with her very experience in food industry, I hope we'll learn a lot more from Christina. So today we are really very grateful to have her with us. And now the screen is yours, Christina.
Thank you very much, Eki, and thank you very much to Foodinopolis for inviting me to speak to everyone today. I'm very excited about it. When you gave me the offer, maybe I should have said no, because truth be told, the Swiss Food and Nutrition Valley is at its early stage, and we're not really ready to talk to the world. However, I had the big privilege of visiting your country a couple of years back, and also Foodinopolis. And as I was saying to Eki earlier, it served as a big inspiration to me. So I felt I owned you one. And hence, premature of everything, I am here, and I'm happy to share with you some insights and give you some understanding of Switzerland and of the gateway to Europe. I do hope that you will have questions that I'm very happy to answer. And also, if the question comes tomorrow or later, we will find a way for you to follow up with me. So I will now share my screen and take you to a couple of slides and tell you a little bit about everything I know. And then we can have a discussion. I was told this would be like a fireside chat or a clubhouse chat. So that's why I invited you into this Swiss chalet here to give you a bit of atmosphere. Good. So let me share my screen with you. Good. I hope you see my screen.
Yes. It's worked very well.
Good. I took the liberty of putting a startup in the brackets, and let me explain why. Yes, I do want to tell you about the Swiss food tech ecosystem and the opportunity as a gateway to the European food market. However, ecosystem is more than just the startups. And I know that we're sort of entering the shoes of startups and that you, the audience, are startups. But always remember, for successful entry and successful innovation, whatever, it more like takes a village. It's not something that anybody can do on their own. And the key in everything we do here at the Swiss Food and Nutrition Valley is collaboration. It is proven different places and known, and it's a new way of doing open innovation is through collaboration. And I will get back to that. Asaki, she presented me really well. I don't have much more to add. I sometimes joke with that I've been here and there and everywhere, and I got kicked out. So I've been a researcher in Australia. I've been working for the Danish embassy in Japan. I've been working at universities in the big corporates for more than a decade with the startups everywhere. So the truth be told is probably I'm a little bit good at everything and not an expert on anything. But that is also, I think, what it takes in this job I'm in today, is to have an understanding of all the players in there. My national roots, I'm Danish, lived in 14 different countries, either studied there or worked there. In Asia, I lived in Japan, but as I said, I had the huge privilege to visit Thailand and spend a whole week looking into your food tech ecosystem and bring back knowledge to Switzerland, which I was very grateful for. Good, let's embark. So I believe everybody knows where Switzerland is, but when we look at it, Thailand can actually fit Switzerland into your country 12 times. Further, we don't have any ocean bordering up to us. We're secluded in the middle of Europe. bordering to Italy and Austria and Germany and France. And we are, even for European standards, a very small country with a small population. When it comes to agricultural area, there's a lot of mountains here in Switzerland where we love going hiking and skiing and biking and enjoying the wildlife. But it also makes the agri land limited. I think that's something we have in common in a way. The main food production here is in the confectionery area. Probably familiar with the Swiss chocolate, the Lindt brand, the Toblerone. All Toblerone from the whole world is produced here in Switzerland with the Swiss cow milk in it. Surprisingly, our first food product export was coffee. Do we grow coffee? No, we don't, but we happen to be the trade mecca of coffee here, and therefore it's registered as such. Our food industry is not the most dominant industry here in Switzerland yet. I'm going to change that, or at least get that 5% number up a little bit. We are famous for our banking, amongst other things. But when we go back to the food we're famous for is the chocolate, the Swiss chocolate, as well as the Swiss cheeses. And when I was in school, I learned a lot about rice and about spices, and everywhere I go, not just everywhere I go, people say, oh, have you tasted the mangoes from Thailand? So I might be wrong on this one, and apologies if I am, but that is how you're a little bit known for over here. One interesting fact I found out when I landed on my journey in Thailand, it was very early morning, I think 5 o'clock or something like that, and I was immediately taken to the local food market and indulged on fruit and vegetables, mainly fruit, whose names I couldn't even say, but it tasted amazing. And then I looked it up, and funnily here in Switzerland, we actually only grow 6 different fruits. We grow strawberries, apricot, pear, apples, and prunes, and grapes. And in Thailand, there are more than 40 common known fruits grown and probably a lot of less known. So again here, an eye-opener and something to put Switzerland into perspective. Now, we might have a lot more different cheese sorts than you, but I'm not sure. Interesting fact about Switzerland is that in spite of being a small country, only 8.5 million people, we actually are sort of split into 4 mini countries. So we speak 4 different languages here. The German language is the most dominant one spoken here and spoken in the northeastern part of Switzerland, amongst other places in Zurich, where I live. The second most dominant one is the French, which is then leaning over to the French border, which is spoken in the Genève area. To the south, bordering Italy, well, there the Swiss people speak Italian, go to school with Italian books. And then we have around 30,000 people speaking a language called Romansh, which is not understandable to anybody but these people. They also speak it in schools, and it's even a written language. Now, the 5th language a bit is the one called Schweizerdeutsch, or translated Swiss German. It leans up against German, the High German, but has a lot of words on its own. And the interesting about Schweizerdeutsch is that it's not an acknowledged language. It's not a written language. It's only a spoken language. And it was predicted that it would die out, but the youth put lots of pride in this secret language. So it will probably live on. Good. Let's get into the core of this. Why Switzerland and why food? It's too small to matter, isn't it? Well, here we have a map of Switzerland and a lot of fancy logos. And surprisingly, in spite of its size, Switzerland is a very, very rich nation when it comes to a thriving food ecosystem. If we start with looking at the companies, we have a lot of global corporates who have their headquarters, one of their headquarters here in Switzerland. Nestle, well, Switzerland is the home of Nestle. It's where it all started. And still today, more than 50% of the R&D people and expenses are invested here in Switzerland, and the activities is going on here. And there's lots of factories, be it from coffee or chocolate or whatever, in the country. And the headquarter is in Switzerland. Another company I would like to draw forward is Givaudan. Givaudan is the world's largest flavor and fragrance house, also Swiss by origin, and today having the headquarters just outside Zurich here, but supplying flavor and fragrances to all over the world. And also international companies like ADM, DSM, being ingredient companies, Amcor, packaging company, Tetra Pak, packaging company, Mondelez, and many more have found their European headquarter or even international headquarter in Switzerland. How come? The answer lies within tax opportunities. It really pays off for a large corporate food company to place its decision making in this country and hence pay a lower tax on the income. So it's very rich and very attractive in that way. Now with corporates, these ACCELs I'm talking to is just a part of it, but very important for Switzerland and also for the global economy are the SMEs. And that is also the backbone of Switzerland. We have a lot of thriving food companies, maybe ingredient or packaging or whatever suppliers or actual food products. Within the dairy sector, lots of smaller cheeseries, lots of in the biscuit sector and so on that are thriving both nationally, but also has a beautiful export to it. It links in a lot to Switzerland being connected with quality, whether you talk watches or you talk food. Switzerland stands for quality. It also stands for pricey items. That's just a side note. So, what else do we need for a thriving ecosystem? Well, the corporates are definitely important because often it's in collaboration with them that we unleash the innovation. But another actor here is, of course, the startups. For the longest time, food and nutrition and agri-tech was not all that sexy. But we've seen a huge change the last 5 to 8 years, that there's an increased interest amongst entrepreneurs and founders to step into the world of food and agri-tech and nutrition. How come? Well, I think one success story inspires another. I think that's a part of it, but also the increased knowledge we have about the world and about the crisis we stand before, the global climate crisis and the human health crisis. We have learned within the last decade that food, as much as we love it and as much as we love eating food, sharing food, and it nurtures our mind and body, as much have we learned that food is the number one sinner when it comes to these two global crises. And hence, we need to do something about it. And that's where the entrepreneurial spirit comes in, of changing the world for the better. Now, entrepreneurs also want to make money. Good, it's a great drive. But I yet have to see a startup which doesn't, in its endeavors, do something good for the world on top of it. And that's also in this very cozy fireside chat. That's also one of my personal motivations for doing the job I'm doing and jumping out of bed every day, is doing what I can to be a small part of this change. I don't have the composition like a lot of you out in the audience of being a true entrepreneur, but this is what I can do. Right. So we have the corporates, we have the startups thriving here. We have an investment community that also used to look more into deep tech, digitalizations and all that, and not so much over to the food, banking systems, crypto, blockchain. But since Switzerland has a very special composition here, we don't have a lot of venture capital funds in that way, but we have a lot of family offices and foundations, meaning private owned money which has been put down to drive a higher purpose. And that is what makes it really interesting, because if you want to talk about the return of investments, you are probably better off going for some digital, deep tech, app, whatever it might be. But when you talk about purpose-driven investments, then welcome to the food nutrition valley, or the country of food and nutrition, because this is really where you can make a change for the world and leave a legacy. So also here we see a lot of things happening and already a very strong position. We have the group which I call the enablers. These are our accelerators and our clusters who do what they can to support startups, especially those coming from abroad, into getting off to making a great success in Switzerland and beyond. And I'll be talking more about that through acceleration programs, collaboration programs, introductions, and so on and so forth. Finally, we have our universities, EPFL, ETH, and the world's #1 hotelery school, EHL, in Lausanne. And also here we see professors, departments stepping up and unleashing their research into driving innovation. And then there's, of course, the government. Now here Switzerland is split into different cantons, and each canton sort of drives their own agenda. And some of these cantons are stepping truly up on the agri-food and nutrition agenda in terms of hosting startups in co-working spaces and adding expertise to whatever needs they might have, introducing them to the market, and so on and so forth. So all around, what I want to say here is that we have a very, very rich ecosystem, and a thriving one and a growing one, in spite of being a small country. Let's see if I can, yeah. So here's a little bit in the overview. And I'm going to take a sip of water now. And this will not turn into a bragging show, because we do need help, and I'll come to that. But historically, Switzerland have a lot of food companies and technology companies that are more than 100 years old, be it Hook or Lind or Ricola, the Bonbon, you might know, Nestlé, Bühler, and many more. We have a lot of talents and knowledge, especially coming out of the universities and also from the business administration universities. The most famous one, IMD, and another one, HSG, or HSG, St. Gallen. They're actually in business, but they have food hubs now, just launched within the last couple of years. An excellent infrastructure and technology knowledge and companies, thriving SMEs and multinationals I talked about, our strong institutions I talked about. And then interestingly, the Swiss people are what we call a very educated consumer. Now, what does that mean? It means that Switzerland is an excellent test market, because people are A, curious about innovation, B, they have the financials to explore, to pay an additional price for an item if there is something that intrigues them about it. But they will also get back to you or tell you if there is something not meeting their experience, be it nutrition-wise or taste-wise or the sustainable aspects, highly nutritious. Where Switzerland is falling more short is that all these things I've talked about, they're all doing their own thing, kind of, one canton or state is doing their own thing, the university is doing their own thing, the other university is doing. So we're very fragmented. And if this Switzerland would be a concert with this, it would just be a lot of noise with everybody playing their own instrument and their own melody. Also, we have a little bit of a challenge with our failing forward mentality. Yes, we will tell it if it doesn't fit or whatever, but really failing and then getting up again is something we have to learn to do better, and we were trying hard. Now, this is where the Swiss Food and Nutrition Valley is coming in, because our mission and what we set out to do is really to get all these individual playing ecosystem players united so that we can start playing a loud concert and start putting all these efforts and different sources together to do something that is bigger. Go further with innovation, go places where none of us can go alone, and really go faster and make it impactful. Our role here is not to come up with new things or do a better accelerator or do a better investment pool or whatever, but it is to make it very accessible and very navigationable. I don't think that's a word, but for a foreign startup coming to Switzerland, it's very difficult to get an overview. We do not have a food monopolies where you can come in and orientate yourself and see what it is. And that's also the role of the Swiss Food and Nutrition Valley as we build it up, to be able to support talents coming into Switzerland in navigating around it. Now, when I talk to some of the members and I tell them, you know, we have this really, really unique knowledge and powerful opportunity to do impact through the funds available in Switzerland. In short, there's a heck of a lot of money here to be invested through the funds, through the knowledge, to the companies that can implement it. Now, having all these resources, that gives us an obligation as a nation to contribute to fighting these two global crises. It's not a question of, oh, let's fix Switzerland so that we have clean air, but it's about unleashing this to the world and taking a responsibility and sharing it. That is, of course, one side to the picture. Now, the other side to it is, in this obligation lies also an opportunity, because as we step up and we start collaborating and we start playing better together and whatever, we also become attractive for startups, for investors, for foreign SMEs to come and get engaged with us. And that is, of course, something that is attractive both to our economy, but also to our companies here to find competitive advantages through teaming up with fantastic startups. So it's kind of the two things. Now, as I said in the beginning, the Valley is still young. And this year, 2021, we are focusing on, you know, let's find out who is here, who wants to play, who wants to collaborate, and play together and sort of set that a C, which means that next year in 2022, we will be ready to go out and talk to the world about what we have to offer and what we're looking for and what we need. Now, with having said that, Switzerland is open, and we do have some initiatives that I will talk about who specifically are looking for great agri, food and nutrition startups from abroad to come and join some programs here. And I'll get back to that in a minute. I don't know how I'm doing on time. Ooh, well, maybe it needs to be a little loud. Yeah, this is actually just a recap of what I've just said. Maybe interesting to know is that we have 5 focus areas in the Valley that we're looking particularly into, and we want to see some platforms here. It's being the protein space, precision nutrition, food systems 4.0, precision farming, and sustainable packaging. Now, this is where you will see us over the coming years launching some initiative from the Valley side. However, when it comes to circular economy and it comes to, I would nearly say, all the usual suspects of any innovation within the food space, we have both investors and accelerators looking for collaboration there. Right, this is a premiere, guys, today. This is the first time ever anybody, I haven't even shown this to my board of directors yet. So this is the MVP of our startup navigation map, so to speak, trying to map out a little bit, well, what do we have to offer when you come here? which are you at the idea stage? I prefer calling it the problem stage, because often you identify a problem you want to solve and not just an idea that you love but nobody else loves. What do we have at the idea stage? What do we have for the startup stage, you know, when you have your MVP but you're still iterating and maybe don't have your first customers? And then for the scale ups, what are their two offers? There are, and here I just put in a few, but there are many more. There are different accelerators. And if we look especially at Kickstart and Mass Challenge, these are accelerators where you don't pay to participate, but they pay for you to participate. They are 100% mandate or sponsored by larger companies who are looking to work with specific startups and who actually are jury members to select you in on this. Mass Challenge is running at the moment. If you're looking for an accelerator in Europe, you should go and check out Kickstart Innovation. They are right now open for applications. And there's some really, this is where I used to work, by the way, before I came here. And it's a really cool system, and they're really happy to tell you more about how it works. The investor landscape is huge. I am just myself trying to navigate around it. Most famous is probably Blue Horizon, really purpose investment, mainly focusing on plant-based proteins, but also sustainable packaging and the likes. And Emerald is on here, not because it's one of the biggest here, but interestingly, it stepped into this into the space of food just recently, like we see other VCs are doing. Facility sharing from different partners, helping being a technology developer, like the Nespresso machine, they played a big part here. They're super keen on helping and supporting startups and lending out both engineers and facilities. Expertise in general, the professors are offering office hours, but also within the companies. We have a lot of experts who are offering one-on-one chats, maybe European legislation or whatever is the challenge. Market access, that is something we're setting up, but with our retailers here, if you take Switzerland as a test market, we have two big retailers, Coop and Migros, who are both stepping up on innovation collaboration, and we have direct links into them. The companies I talked a bit about, they are also increasingly interested in talking to startups and come to both to us with their outreach mandate, but also it goes the other way around, that startups come and saying, we would like to talk to one or the other company. Can you help us with that? And finally, another challenge we have identified, at least for the startups over here, is the whole building a team or matchmaking, or maybe you want to make or build a European subsidiary and have somebody to run your office here. There we're also in the midst of setting up opportunities on how to matchmake and find these perfect team partners for you and your team. Good. Yeah, here's another little map of it. I think I talked about them. This is actually our current members. So we're still at the visionary stages, trying to get into some content here. So these companies and governments and clusters have signed up and say, we share the vision. Let's go get. I find it totally impressive because right now they're not really harvesting much from it, but they say, we're willing to contribute. What do you need? And we'll set this up together. At the moment, the Swiss Food and Nutrition Valley is 100% funded by the members. But as we move on, the intention is to give governmental support and indeed from some of these family and foundations we have. This chart here, and I'll share the presentation afterwards with Eki and the team, but this is really for you to go in and have a look and see, are any of these interesting for you to get in contact with, and then you can reach to us and we'll be happy to do the introduction. Now this is how we'll do it. If you will come to the Swiss Food and Nutrition Valley and say, hey, we're considering using Switzerland as an entry port to Europe, because Switzerland is small enough for you to screw up here. Now, if you do that, you only lose 8 million customers. But if you screw up in Germany or France or Spain or Italy, you're losing 80 million or 60 million customers. So it's a good place to run your European MVP and test it out. further, as I mentioned, you have this very curious and innovation openness from the Swiss consumers, and you have an amazing support network here to get the right learnings and to get it right one way or another. So this crisscross map is with your logo on the very top of it. And as we go forward, this is our ambition, that we will be able to greet you, listen to what your needs are, and hence make you a navigation map on how you can become successful with using and collaborating with Switzerland as an entry gate to Europe. Now, with these invisible borders around here, you will also, if let's say you're looking for somebody for your advisory board who has a pan-European knowledge in retail or whatever, that's also something that there is a lot of great executives who are willing to work pro bono or support startups in missions they believe in, and will be able to give you access to the wider space of Europe through them. Good. I think this is bringing me to the end of the presentation. And with that, I would like to hand over to Gay. Thank you for your attention and lots of questions.
This is super useful information for all of us here. And thank you for the details and that you mentioned that this is the first time that you present to to the world, right? Okay, so I think this is then a big opportunity for all of us to ask and discuss with Christina here. So anyone who have questions or any comments you would like to address?
Yeah.
Please.
Even suggestions, you know, you were at the grand premiere here. So if you
Okay.
have suggestions on something that I should address, I would be very happy to hear you.
You're
Your
super.
input.
You are amazing. โอเค ใครมีคำถามเชิญเลยนะครับ จะเขียนใน inbox ก็ได้ หรือว่าจะ raise your hands and ask questions by yourself. Please do.
Christina, this is Akarawit again. Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Yeah, in terms of regulatory affairs in Switzerland and in Europe in general, since you mentioned that Switzerland can play an important role as a gateway of food and nutrition for Europe. In terms of regulations, how tough it is for the Swiss food regulator compared to the European in general? And then would that be any barrier for the food exporter to go to Switzerland and Europe in general from your point of view?
Yeah, a super question, because for sure, Switzerland is not a part of the European Union. It means that the trade barriers are there, you know, they're not down. And it also means that Switzerland does not, per se, have to comply with the European Union's food regulations directives, but has its own. As a rule of thumb, the Swiss regulations is tougher than the European regulations, meaning that if you comply with the Swiss regulations, you indeed comply with the European. That is only a rule of thumb. Now, the good thing is that our legislation experts here in Switzerland, they work on both sides, meaning that they have both directives with them to comply on, because what we produce here, what our SMEs here and our business here is, it's not just producing for the Swiss market. So complying with both of them is something that they're used to. And also just such a thing as labeling products in different languages. It's something that Switzerland's regulatory experts, they master really well. So you would nearly, through a trial here, you would be able to get the French, the German, and the Italian language all covered in one trial. But yeah, so there are a few places where the Swiss regulation is different. One is, for example, when it comes to CBD, where Switzerland was the first European country to adopt that. And that's another thing, you know, if we should look a bit into the future, it is my hope and wish that the Swiss government become fast adopters when it comes to changing regulations, because regulation is a big challenge, or I can say the regulatory bodies are having a challenge with keeping up with the engineers and the entrepreneurs when it comes to adapting to the future. So there's a lot of knows and unknowns and put on hold because of that. We've seen it in Singapore where cell-based meat has been approved like very fast and they'll move faster. So my wish is that in that way, Switzerland can also become a test and trial market. But right now we're leaning pretty much up to the European ones. And yeah, I hope that answers your question, Akarit.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions from the floor? Please do. Otherwise, I will go first.
Go.
Okay. I believe that some of our startups want to market their products in Europe, especially in Switzerland. Apart from the regulations that Dr. Akrit mentioned, what else do they need to prepare? I mean, if they want to work with you and market themselves in Switzerland, what do they need to prepare?
I think no matter where you go in the world with your product and no matter which country you come from, you need to educate yourself culturally. And culturally, in the widest sense, one is the taste palettes. As you probably know, as Europeans, we're not really good with the over spiciness. We always, the whole world loves the Thai food, but we always ask for tourist style, please, or tourist spiced. So that is one thing. The other thing is if you start doing business, what is the culture there? And I'm sure even within Thailand, the way of doing business in the north and the south is very different. And you can also not say there is one European way of doing business. To give you the best example, when I work with American startups and they come over here and I would have the first meeting with them, they would start the meeting with saying, we're all going to die. And it's da, 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 da. And you feel you're in a Hollywood movie and you go like, oh my God, it's terrible. And big words, big arm movements, big drama. And the Swiss man and woman is quite full of composure, gathered, a little bit like the Japanese, sitting there listening, going, this person is crazy. We need to get him out of the room. So, make sure you invest some of your time in getting a cultural onboarding, and it can be extremely fun and challenging, but the same way with our flavor palettes are different, so is our way of communicating and doing things different. And I think it's important to be aware of that.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from the floor? Please do. มีคำถามไหมครับเชิญเลย
Hello.
เชิญเลยครับ
Hello. My name is Vivat. Hello, Christina. Yes. Thank you very much for your information. It's very, very useful. I have a question that I want to know the point that you have mentioned that in Switzerland you have very, I would say like a very strict regulation more than other countries in Europe. Normally, what kind of area that you have more focus than other countries?
Thank you, Vivat. Was it in agri-tech? Were you referring specifically to agri-tech?
Yes.
Agriculture? Yes.
Yes, please.
So a little bit of an insight on the Swiss agriculture. The Swiss farmer, he has on average 20 cows, and it's not just an average. He has pretty much 20 cows, every farmer that has cows. If you look at a Dutch or a Danish, or if you go to Americas, whatever, we're talking about hundreds or thousands or sizes as big as one of our cantons here with cow farms, whatever. So we work small scale. A lot of our crop is grown on hills that are sliding with manual work, and based on our cheese production or whatever, we do have a lot going on in the field of milk. We have a lot of poultry. It is difficult a bit with the meat production. We don't really do any meat export because we don't have the land space to do that. Now, when it comes to precision farming, and one good thing to know about Switzerland is that we're very cautious about the environment. And we have votes coming up in the near future about fertilization. You know, how much can we give to the fields and the plants so it doesn't go into the groundwater and our drinking water. Precision farming, where you identify a plant and you either give it 3 drops of poison or 5 drops of nutrition instead of just spreading it out in the field, is something that is coming up very fast. And the same thing, the technology about tagging a cow and knowing exactly what it eats and when it produces the most milk and whatever. These are the kind of technologies. But any technology that really feeds into small farmers' improvement of output is yield is something that has a high interest. And also an interesting one, getting back to the cows, feeding the cows some different food that makes it's release less methane, which is the carbon footprint, is also something that is researched both by the companies here, DSM and ADM and whatever, and is looked into to apply with the farmers here as a test market. So was that helpful, Vivat?
Yes, thank you. That's a very helpful information. Thank you. ขอบคุณครับ
Well, thank you. Any other questions or comments or suggestions? Dr. Eki, are you having any?
I have another question. If nobody has any question for the moment, I'll cut it again, Christina. Very exciting for the ecosystem of the Swiss Food and Nutrition Valley, especially for the startup ecosystem that you have mentioned. My question is very short. What is the entrepreneurial spirit in Switzerland in general, in terms of researchers and graduate students and regular people in Switzerland regarding a food tech startup? Is it an easy job for you, or is it a difficult job to promote the startups, food tech startup in Switzerland?
Yeah, really good question. Again, I really feel that we're in the midst of a big change here. We come from a culture where it said, okay, what do you want to be when you grow up? Okay, I want to be rich and famous, or I just want to be rich, so I'll become a banker. Or so the whole entrepreneurial space was sort of unknown. Or if you want to be an entrepreneur, as I said, definitely didn't want to go in food. Now, what we have today is within the universities, both EPFL and ETH and EHL, we have programs that support and fosters entrepreneurial spirit or people who are set out to become founders. And also the storytelling we have stepped up on, where the media, the news are picking up on a lot of great stories of success stories from Swiss food startups, and that of course inspires people. In my personal opinion, we need a lot more. We need a lot more because there's so much to be done in this space, and we need a lot more who is happy to step up. And again, the job of the Swiss Food Nutrition Valley is not just for the external talents to come in and navigate, but indeed also for our own talents and our own future hopes to help them navigate around, to get raise their first funds, to make sure they get the right advisors on board there at committee, to make sure they understand the ABCs of founding a company and not having to learn everything all over again, but can learn from their experiences and program. I'm very hopeful. I'm very hopeful because I see it happening, and I see those who talk about becoming entrepreneurs become younger and younger and younger, which means it's a seed you plant. It's nearly like being a farmer. You talk to the youngest generation about, imagine if you could change something in the world, what would it be and how would you do it? And then it goes and then check their education. Not just the younger generation, I also see a lot of successful entrepreneurs coming out from Nestle. The head of Nestle's protein department, Mine, she one day said, I want to do something where I can be a bit more purposeful than here. And she walked out the door and she had an idea. And today that's her business, a golden chlorella. And so we know that entrepreneurs who are above the age of 40s, they have twice the likelihood of succeeding coming out with his experience and knowledge. So I also want to encourage that part of the population. But the short answer is I'm very hopeful, but we need to, there's a job again for the Swiss Food Nutrition Valley, and I also think for Food Innopolis, not just to pick up whatever we're happy to see and come out, but foster this culture early. Yeah.
Well, thank you for the answer. We have one question in the chat box from Kun Monta. She would like to know the funding mechanism for the early food tech startups, especially in deep tech. Okay.
Great. So the funding mechanism as it is today is what was on the red mark thing. It's scattered. It's really a treasure hunt. You start one place and then you ask this person to recommend your new place and you go around like that. So that is one thing we want to map out in this kind of map where you will see, okay, who is funding where, in which technologies and how. I don't have the map today, but we are working on what I have is I have roundtable discussions with some of these players. Most of the time we see them founding in a Series A or a certain ticket size. With the very early stage, it's still the friends, fool, and families that we refer to, who believes in when you have nothing but a vision and you need the early funds there. One mechanism that is successful for two reasons is the crowdfunding. I don't know how used it is in Thailand, but a lot of startups here, more in products innovation than in deep tech, but they would go out and do a funding round before they do their first production and call in for this crowdfunding where you pay anything between $10 and $250, and then you get the first bottle or the first biscuits or whatever when it's launched. And they do it for two reasons. One is, of course, to raise funds, but the second reason is it's a fantastic marketing tool. It brings a lot of awareness and it brings a lot of reach prior to your launch of a product. Now with deep tech, we have a lot of programs in place. We also have Digital Switzerland. We have SGE, and I think next week, is it the same audience next week?
With the Swiss
Food research, Peter Brown,
right?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so next week you'll, for example, hear from SGEs who is helping, with these first investment rounds. But as you can hear, it's right now a little bit scattered all over the place, and we need to map it out so that it will be easy for you people to navigate. The one thing I can say is there is money to get here. However, you need to be good. They need to believe in your technology. And for that one, how do you do that here? There are two things, and I think next Friday you will indeed hear that from Andrew. He's amazing, and please ask him the same question about that. But one thing is, of course, they need to believe in what you do. Believe that you have a cutting edge here. And there's like three things that investors often look at. And number three is this, your idea, your product. That is only number three. Number two is the team. Who are you as a character? Have you built up a great team, strong people? Everybody has a bit of equity. They're personally involved. And number one is a little bit beyond your control. Number one is the timing. Is your timing right? And these 3, 2, 1 is not just for the funding rounds, but it's actually also the success of your startup. Is your idea right? Is your team right? And is your timing right? And some of the great inventions we see today and startups we see today, they were not the first to come with this idea, but they came with the right timing. Yeah, TikTok. There's TikTok before, but the timing was wrong. Somebody got the timing right of launching it. So stay tuned next week with Andy and also the other session. Somebody can answer this better. And when I get invited out to Thailand next time, I'll bring a map and it will be very clear. And you guys go.
Thank you for the
Good.
tips. And one more question from Kun Tirsit in the chat box. He would like to know how popular are herbal products in Switzerland or in Europe. The the herbal products.
The what? Which products? Sorry.
Herbal.
Herbal.
Okay.
Herbal products. Yeah. Personal opinion. Herbal products is a huge untapped opportunity. Now, when we look at it, until 50, 100 years ago, food was perceived as medicine. For centuries, you know, as long as we go back, we know that it was used for anything, toothache and whatever. But the last 50 to 100 years, especially here in Europe and the US, we sort of lost the knowledge of that. Yeah, grandma used to do that, so we tried, but we don't know why. And that was one of my learnings also and feedbacks when I presented coming back from Thailand. I think you have a lot of not just herbal, but active foods that helps against a stomach ache and against this and that. The thing is, we have only mapped out around 100 and 150 of the components, the active components, all the vitamins, all the trace minerals and what have we in food. But there's like, I don't know, 300,000 different molecules that we haven't mapped out yet and we haven't done research about. Why is that? I think now you're getting a bigger speech here. You press the button that you can hear. I think it's partly because we had such a dominating pharma industry who is making money on curing us from an illness and not preventing us. And I think this prevention through herbal eating, food as medicine, I think it has to come back now, and it will, because we are getting ill, and we are finding out that food is something that we all need we all have individual needs, and in this stressed world we have increased needs. Just the final example here is that I know the Danish apple in the northern Europe country where I'm from today, an apple only has 5% of the nutrients which it had 30 years ago, which means I have to eat, you know, a lot of apples to get the same vitamins that I would get before. So long story short, is it widely recognized? No. Is there some sort of recognition? Yes. Is there high curiosity? Yes. Is there business opportunity? Indeed. Is the timing right? I hope so, but somebody has to do it.
Well, I think we make most of our time. I would like to invite Christina to give a final recommendation for all of us here, or in case you want to share the contact of Sweet Food Nutrition Wallet, please.
Yes, I'm happy to do that. How do you do that the best? Should I just put an email here in the chat?
Okay.
Or should I send it to you? I'm also happy to share the presentation. Just tell me what you want me to do, Gay.
Okay. Maybe you want to share the slide again. On the back of the slide, I saw the contact. Maybe people can.
Did you? You were fast. I'll see what I'm sharing here. Let's try. On the back on the slide, you saw the
back. Did I? No.
Did you?
Okay. No.
I don't know. There's a lot of slides here. As you can see. I don't think I have the contacts on the slides. I'm sorry, but I'm happy to give them to you.
Okay. Okay.
Let us see here. Do you want me to send it over? Is that good? And you can share with the participant, or should I put it in the chat?
Would be amazing.
I'm just putting in the chat our general email here.
Okay.
Info swissfoodnutritionvalley.ch for Switzerland.
Right. So anyone who wants to work with Christina can email her right away. Yes.
Yes.
That's amazing. Thank you very much.
So, we have to thank Christina for sharing her afternoon, Friday afternoon in Switzerland with us. And as I informed you earlier that we are running our accelerators, the first cohort is now on since the beginning of this year, and it will run until September. And I hope that we could have some good startup, good team that we may connect with you and have them work with you or with in Swiss food tech startup ecosystem next year when you are more ready with all the program to support them in 2020s. And also along the way, we will keep you posted what we are up to about our accelerators. And then I'm sure that we will exchange information. And yes, we'll meet again on the next week on the session of Thai Swiss Food Tech Forum. And but that we will hear you only 10 minutes, but today is an hour and then it's a premiere. So thank you very much.
Exactly. We had a little bit of quality time together here. Thank you very much. And
I would like to have the poster for next week coming up program. Kun Krongjit, please bring up the
so
poster for next
if you are available, Christina, you can join or listen it from your mobile or tablet while Andrew is talking. It's same time. Friday, your time is 2 o'clock, 2 to 3 o'clock. So that would be Andrew time in the morning.
great.
We'll be sure to drop you the link. It would be the same platform on this WebEx.
All right, everyone. Next week, coming up next week is the one more interesting topics from Andrew. He's currently holding a position as a founder and managing general partner at Big Idea Ventures, and his topic would be what do accelerators looking for when working with entrepreneurs. I think you cannot miss it. So see you next week. Okay, that's a wrap.
Stay tuned, everyone, and thank you very much, Christina.
Thank you all. Have a good week.
ขอบคุณครับ เดี๋ยวอาทิตย์หน้าเดี๋ยวจะส่งอีเมลไปว่าลิงก์เป็นอะไรนะครับแล้วก็ใครที่ลงทะเบียนมาแล้วก็เดี๋ยวจะใช้อีเมลเดิมส่งไปนะครับแล้วก็ใครที่ยังไม่ได้เข้าไลน์กลุ่มก็เชิญนะครับเพราะว่าเดี๋ยวจะมีข้อมูลต่างๆที่น่าสนใจเข้าไปก็อาจจะขึ้นไลน์กลุ่มอีกทีนะครับเป็น QR code ก็ส่วนใหญ่จะเป็นหัวข้อที่น่าจะมีประโยชน์นะกับคนที่อยู่ในฟู้ดอีโคซิสเต็มในบ้านเรานะครับก็จะพยายามไปหาสปีกเกอร์ที่น่าสนใจแล้วก็สามารถที่จะทำงานกับเราได้นะครับทั่วโลกเลยนะครับเรียนจากเลยก็ขึ้นสไลด์นิดนึงนะครับChristina, bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
Take care. Bye.
เรียนเชิญนะครับใครที่ยังอยู่ในนี้นะครับก็เราเปิดไลน์กลุ่มเอาไว้นะครับเพื่อที่จะส่งinvitation นะครับเป็นหัวข้อที่น่าสนใจเนาะเป็นเราเรียกว่า Food Tech Special Talk นะครับก็คิดว่ามันเป็น1ชั่วโมงที่มีประโยชน์นะเวลาที่เรามาฟังในพวกนี้แล้วก็บางทีเราอาจจะได้มีโอกาสดีๆไปเชื่อมต่อกับ Ecosystem ที่อื่นในโลกนะครับแล้วก็ Food Innopolis เองเราก็ทำงานกับหลายๆที่ในโลกก็คือที่นี่คือสวิตเซอร์แลนด์แล้วก็ยุโรปเดี๋ยวอาทิตย์หน้าจะเป็นฝั่งอเมริกานะครับแล้วก็ทางแอนดรูเนี่ยก็ทำงานกับที่สิงคโปร์แล้วก็กำลังจะทำงานกับ Food Innopolis ด้วยเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยก็คิดว่าน่าจะมีประโยชน์แล้วถ้าแวดวงของเราอยากจะชวนกันมาก็ยินดีเลยวันนี้เป็น Open Session ที่คิดว่าเรามาจอยกันรับรู้ร่วมกันว่าตอนนี้เนี่ยในโลกมีใครช่วยเราอยู่บ้างนะครับเราจะได้รู้สึกว่ามันง่ายกว่าที่คิดนะครับแล้วก็อีเมลเนี่ยได้ส่งเข้าไปในกลุ่มเมื่อกี้นะอีเมลของคริสติน่านะครับใครที่อยากจะทำมาร์เก็ตในสวิตเซอร์แลนด์หรืออยากจะไปaccelerate ตัวเองที่สวิตเซอร์แลนด์ใครอยากจะไปหานักลงทุนที่สวิตเซอร์แลนด์ก็ติดต่อไปที่อีเมลที่ให้มาได้เลยก็มีประโยชน์นะครับหลายๆคนถ้าอยากจะจอยโปรแกรมต่างๆของ Food Innopolis เนี่ยก็พยายามอยู่ในไลน์กลุ่มนะเพราะว่าจริงๆนอกจาก Food Tech Special Talk เนี่ยเรามีโปรแกรมอื่นๆตลอดเวลานะครับเพื่อที่จะทำให้คนที่อยู่ในวงการฟู้ดของเราเนี่ยได้ประโยชน์ตลอดเวลาไม่ว่าอะไรจะเกิดขึ้นนะครับต้องขอบคุณทุกคนมากที่อยู่วันนี้นะครับเราคิดว่าเดี๋ยวศุกร์หน้าพบกันนะครับเป็นหัวข้อที่ตื่นเต้นมากเลยนะครับจริงๆแล้วเราประกาศออกไปเนี่ยจริงๆแอนดรูเป็นพรุ่งนี้แต่ว่าแอนดรูเนี่ยเพิ่งติดต่อมาว่าเขาติดทำงานกับlimited partner ที่ทำงานกับventure capital นะครับก็เลยเป็นศุกร์หน้านะครับเพราะฉะนั้นก็บุ๊กคาเลนดาร์เป็นศุกร์หน้านะครับแล้วก็ตั้งคำถามมาเลยแอนดรูนี่สนุกมากเลยแล้วเขาเป็นaccelerator ที่น่าจะรายใหญ่ที่สุดในโลกนะก็คิดว่าเป็นอะไรที่น่าสนใจแล้วเราน่าจะได้เรียนรู้อะไร กับแอนดรูอีกเยอะมากๆเลยนะครับขอบคุณ
แอนดรูมี accelerator ที่สิงคโปร์ด้วยนะคะ คือเขาสนใจที่จะ recruit startup ไปอยู่ที่สิงคโปร์ด้วย ก็จะเป็นอีกที่หนึ่งที่ใกล้บ้านหน่อย
โอเค
ขอบคุณทุกคนค่ะ
Good night
สวัสดีค่ะ
Bye bye thank you
สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีค
ปิ
รั
ด
บ
ห้องแล้วนะคะ ขออนุญาต
สวัสดี
ปิดห้องแล้วนะคะ สวัสดีค่ะ
ขอบคุณครับ
Oh, that's a wrap. It's pretty good though. She's very nice and very
จริงๆถ้าได้คริสติน่ากับแอนดรูพร้อมกันในพาเนลเดียวกันนะ สนุกมากสนุกเลย เพราะว่าเขาเป็นเพื่อนๆกันใน business อ่ะเราจะเรียนอะไรเยอะเลย ก็เสียดายแอนดรูไม่ได้มาวันนี้
okay. So
anyway พี่ปิดแล้วนะ ใครยังค้างอยู่ก็ปิดห้องแล้วนะจ๊ะ สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีครับ